Hello, Xers and interwebers. Welcome to another episode of Naive in the 90s, the podcast. My name is Emily, and I'm your host. I was a 70s baby, an 80s kid, and a 90s troublemaker. Let's just jump into today's episode. Today we're going to talk about one of my very, very favorite 80s movies. Now, I watched this movie like a million times growing up because one of my best friends as a kid, she had two older brothers, and so we watched a lot of these 80s teen movies, even though we were 80s kids ourselves. So today we're going to talk about Better Off Dead. That came out August 23rd, 1985, and it was written and directed by Savage Steve Holland. The nickname Savage came because he broke some kid's teeth. I think it was a sporting accident. Like, he kicked someone in the face by accident and broke their teeth. So they started calling him Savage. This was his first film, or at least major film, and it's pretty cool. I personally love it. At the time, in 1985, it made $10.3 million, which is pretty good, especially for a first film and a teen movie. So, yeah. So, Better Off Dead stars John Cusack as Lane, who is the main character. He's from Say Anything, Grosse Point Blank, that kind of stuff. He was also one of the little nerds, or the little nerd friends of the nerd in 16 Candles. Curtis Armstrong, who played Charles, and he was also Booger from the Nerds movies, like Nerds and Revenge of the Nerds, those. Diane Franklin, who played Monique, and she was not French, by the way. I don't know if anyone else noticed, but apparently her French accent, which is like the stereotypic French accent, is not a real one, and I don't think I knew that. It could actually be part of the joke. Like, people who have reviewed it and like critiqued this movie are like, yeah, the French accent is so bad, like it's got to be part of the joke, or she's just that bad of an actress, and I don't think she is. So just, yeah. But she was also one of the princesses in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which was another iconic movie from the time. And then, of course, there is Dan Schneider, who plays Ricky, the neighbor boy who Monique is staying with as a foreign exchange student. And Dan Schneider is, that guy could be a whole episode of his own, because yikes. He did go on to be in the TV show Head of the Class, which I remember watching and loving. And then he became a producer and writer for many, many, many Nickelodeon shows. And there's a load of controversy surrounding him. Inappropriate just behavior in multiple ways with multiple of the kids that were there, from just being a jerk to just wanting back rubs from the girls. It's just things with feet. I don't know. But I'm a huge believer in love the art, not the artist. Because if you start not liking art in any of its form, that could be acting, music, writing, any of the traditional arts, just anything. If you go with the whole, I don't like this art now because of one of the artists or the artist, you're gonna not like a lot of stuff. Actors and actresses and artists and musicians and authors and all these people, they are just people. And people are inherently flawed, and we are stupid, and we are selfish, and we're gross, and just so, yes, there are definitely some people who I've heard things about in their personal life that has made me like just not be able to watch them. But at the same time, I that's very rare, and like very, very rare. Like, I do have a issue with Mr. Mooney from Ferris Bueller, which is super, super hard. I think his name is Jeff Jackson. I don't remember his name offhand right now. It's Jeff something. But yeah, Mr. Mooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and the bad guy, or who turns into the bad guy in Howard the Duck, and he's in a bunch of other stuff. He's a known, child porn viewer. You can look it up on Google. There's even a mugshot. He's a gross man, and he's on the sex offender list. Yet people keep watching his stuff. I do kind of like, I don't not watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I guess, but it doesn't ever leave my brain. So it is kind of hard sometimes to separate the artist from the art. But I mean, again, we would have to cancel every single person, like, except for maybe a handful of people at this point, because humans are gross. So so Dan Schneider, he played Ricky, and then Amanda Weiss played Beth. And Beth was the ex-girlfriend, or in the beginning the girlfriend, and then the ex-girlfriend of Lane, played by John Cusack. And Amanda, I will tell you, 1 year before Better Off Dead, she did Nightmare on Elm Street. She played Tina. She was the first teenager to die, and it was in a scarring, horrible way, and I just can't see her without seeing that. And it's disturbing, because if you know me, like, that show, or that movie, really messed me up. Like, oh god, it scared me so bad. But yeah, so she actually had a really, pretty good career, and she's still actually working now. But she was in, Better Off Dead, in Nightmare on Elm Street. She was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, awesome. And then she's got a bunch of TV cameos from then all the way through now. Like anything from Cheers and St. Elmo's Fire, My Two Dad, Quantum Leap, Silk Stockings, Highlander, Walker, Texas Ranger, NYPD Blue, ER, Charmed, Dexter, CSI. Like, it just goes on and on. Like, she's got another show coming out. I think it's this year, or it might already be out. I'm not 100% positive, but it's called Station 19. So, like, the girl is still working. So, good for her. Savage Steve Holland, he started as an animator, and one of the neat little tidbits I found was that he was actually the animator of the Angry Little Weird Dudes on the old, like, I don't even know if people nowadays even know what it is, but there was an old game show, and it was called Press Your Luck, and there, like, the whole point of it was you wanted to win prizes, and you didn't want the little spinny thing. It was a board with, like, squares on it, and the little light would go around, and it'd be like boop 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 boop. And you wouldn't want it to land on what they would call whammies, and, like, literally people would hit the little button, and the little red square would start going around the inside little squares, and there could be prizes or there could be whammies. And people would press it, and they'd be like, the little thing would start, and it'd be like bloop 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 bloop, and everyone would be like, no whammies, no whammies. It was kind of weird. But when you did get a whammy, you'd get these little angry red guys, and they'd like yell at you or like make weird little noises or actions. And apparently Savage Steve Holland was the animator of those, so that's kind of cool. I don't know, let's see what else. Oh, something to look out for if you watch the movie. Lane and Monique and Ricky all go to a dance, like a school dance, and at this dance they have a singer, and this singer is like, she's very good. She's very, very, very 80s. Some people from my generation, from Generation X, will recognize her from being in Valley Girl, among other very 80s things. But the crazy thing that I saw or found out, and I think that if you're gonna watch the movie, whether you've seen it or haven't seen it before, this is super interesting. The singer is actually E.G. Daly, who is the voice of many, many, many cartoon characters, but notably Tommy Pickles. Like, she's Tommy Pickles. Tommy Pickles is just singing it up and being all sexy in a little silver dress, and it's just, my brain does not know how to handle that, because wow. Also, you'll notice that Badger, Lane's little brother, he's definitely like a character in there. He does a bunch of things, but he never talks. He doesn't have one line throughout the entire movie, and that's just, I don't know, that's crazy. So yeah, so let's just get into it. I'm just gonna go through the movie because like I watched it and I took notes while I was watching, just like I did for My So-Called Life, the first episode. And yeah, it's just kind of fun to do this. It's just like revisiting things, and just, it's different watching this through adult eyes, I guess. Even though I've seen many of the things that I have watched, like I've seen this movie probably in the last, like, I don't know, it's been a while, but probably like 10-15 years. I've definitely watched it a million times. So yeah, I just, watching it now is definitely a different experience, but I guess that makes sense because perspectives change as you age, right? So yeah, so these are just some things that I noticed and I just thought I'd talk about. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just me and my spicy brain, and there's gonna be some stuff that like people are gonna be like, oh my god, you're nitpicking, but I mean, yeah, that's that's kind of what I'm doing with these kind of episodes, right? I'm going through and just pointing out things that, you know, spark something in my brain. So yeah, so the movie starts out with animation, which Steve Holland did. He's definitely got a very particular like 70s 80s vibe to his animation. It is very reminiscent of these like gross, I don't even know what they're called, but they were like these like gross stickers. And no, they weren't Garbage Pail Kids. They predated the Garbage Pail Kids. And yeah, we used to have stickers of them, and my cousin actually had a bunch of them all over his bed, and like, I don't know, I don't know. And I think it was from him. I don't remember, but like my first big girl bed when I was little was I believe his old bed, and there were stickers, these old like weird, funny, scary, gross stickers that were just stuck on it. And Like, I remember seeing them all the time. And, like, some of them are cute. And, like, cute in a gross, ugly way. And some of them were just gross. So, yeah. But, I did, it's kind of neat. The dad in the movie also played Charles Winchester III in MASH. So if you're like an old time person, you know who I'm talking about. And if you like classic TV, MASH is awesome and you should definitely watch it. It's both funny and serious at the same time. And I haven't watched it in a really long time, but I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that's just outdated now because everything becomes outdated. Like everything. That's just kind of how it works. As we progress in time, things that were older certainly appear older. So, yeah. But yeah, so the $2, it starts out pretty strong with the little paper boy who's very angry about his $2. And I do want to know, like, what came first? The damage to the garage, because, the dad hears him coming, wakes up from a dead sleep, and goes rushing down to the garage outside to open it so that his remaining windows for the garage are not broken, because you can see clearly that there are holes of something that are thrown. It's indicating that it's the paper. So the $2, what came first? The damage to the garage or the withholding of the $2? To me, now as an adult, it appears to be the windows. Like, so I don't know. I kind of feel like if your paperboy damages your property, keep your $2. So, yeah. So the mom's cooking in this movie is like an ongoing joke. And the funny part of that is Steve Holland actually says that this movie is semi-autobiographical. So that means that a lot of it is kind of based on things that actually happened in his life. For example, he actually was dumped by his high school girlfriend for a ski captain. So, stuff like that. The mom's horrible cooking is also another thing he took from his real life and turned it into this fictional joke. Did his mom make, gooey raisin walking slime? No. Did she have, octopus and crab leg supreme cooking in the background fighting her? No. But he did say that she actually would get these recipes out of all these old school magazines like Ladies Home Journal, Good Housekeeping, all these, and they'd be weird, and she'd just keep trying them. And that's, how it was in the movie is how he felt. So yeah, that is funny. It's kind of funny to watch throughout the whole movie because it's ongoing and it's hilarious. Another thing right off the bat was, Badger. First of all, why is his name Badger? What kind of name is that? But fine. But Badger is cutting out cereal box panels from the back and from the sides of the cereal boxes to mail in for prizes. And that is definitely a thing that they used to do. We used to be able to collect box tops and send those in along with, the back panel thing that usually would have where we would put our information, like whatever. We would definitely be able to send in for stuff. I remember sending in for a submarine, and it was like, oh, it moves and it does all this stuff and like it's so cool. And then we got it, and it was this tiny, like 3-inch plastic yellow submarine that you put baking soda in, and then you could put it in the water, and it reacted, and it made bubbles. That was like pretty much it, and it was such a letdown. But those are the kind of prizes that they're talking about. the thing that got me in this was, where are the plastic bags of all the freaking cereals? Like, I don't. I mean, I was a kid in the 80s. I was definitely in 1985. I was 8. So like, I was, a person with memories. um, but I don't remember there not being bags in the boxes. Now, granted, this is probably just for comedic effect because, you know, if the bags were there, the cereal and everything wouldn't be falling out on everyone when they try to use it. And I get that that's the joke, but maybe it's, my neurospicy brain that's just like, but that's not how it was. So like, it's not that I don't get the joke. It's just I think the joke is stupid because there was plastic bags. Your cereal wouldn't fall out. So yeah. But like I mentioned before, this was semi-autobiographical for Holland, and he did say that his high school girlfriend, did leave for his ski team, and that's weird. I don't like ski teams. I guess they're in Northern California. I guess that's a prominent thing. We had ski club in my school. We had a, like a ski slope place very, very close to us, very local. And we definitely had ski club. I really don't remember if there was like a ski team, and if there was a team, like who they were skiing against. Like, I don't know, but I also was, in my own little world in high school, so maybe we had a ski team. I remember people with skis. I remember people with the little tags on their jackets saying, the lift tags. Like, they definitely were there, but also I don't remember it being like a team. So, that's okay. Another thing I thought was kind of weird in this whole thing was that the dad has such a hang up about Lane's car sitting in the yard. Like, it's such a point of contention. Like, his dad's really grinding him about this car, and then we find out that he only bought the car because Beth liked it, and he had only been going out with Beth for 6 months tops. So how long has the car been there? It couldn't have been there that long. And like, I don't know. Like, it couldn't have been that long. Some of the characters that we meet in this are just super fun. There's the Asian brothers, and they're never specifically categorized into like what kind of Asian. They're just Asian. I guess they're supposed to be Japanese because the actor who does the talking, the announcer brother, he is actually Japanese. He's also the guy who played Chosen in Karate Kid 2 and who is now or was in Cobra Kai. So that's nifty too. But the neat thing about him was not only that he was, in Karate Kid 2, which I also love that movie. That's actually, Karate Kid 2 is my favorite of all 3. The first one, don't get me wrong, is awesome. I loved it. But the second one, there was just more to it, more depth. Just the scenery was gorgeous. Just whatever. I loved it. And I never saw 3, which is weird. Because, like, I don't think I knew that there was a 3 until my husband and I started watching Cobra Kai. And it's like, who the hell are these characters that are just showing up? And then, spicy brain again. So I have to look it up. And I was like, oh, there's a 3. Why do I not remember that? So, but I'm doing better than my husband already because he only saw the first one. He didn't even see the second one. So, Okamoto's Howard Cosell voice was actually a dub of this guy named Rich Little. They dubbed Okamoto's voice, even though he was hired after doing his own version of Howard Cosell, but with an Asian accent. This is what Okamoto said about the dubbing in an interview later on, like not that long ago. Production explained it to him that they did the dubbing because, quote, they wanted to make sure the audience understood the dialogue. It was a little disappointing, but hey, it's their film. So, it's kind of lame because, especially now compared to like everything, there's accents or just full up other languages now spoken to keep like authenticity. And in this movie, they actually were just like, nope. Like, you can't, we're just not even gonna let you talk. So, there. And like, yeah. So, another part of the thing was the whole pig burgers thing. And I found it interesting that, in the beginning of the movie, Lane hits the pig burgers truck. He rear ends it and then backs into it. So he hits the guy, like the owner guy, in the pig burger truck twice in the beginning. In fact, the second time he hits him, the pig burgers guy gets out and he like kind of like attacks him in the car. Like he goes at him. We don't really see anything other than that. But he like comes face to face with him and he like puts his hands on him. So he saw him. Like he visibly saw him. But later in the movie, he goes to work at Pig Burger because the dad knows the Pig Burger guy, and the Pig Burger guy just like kind of acts like he doesn't know him. He's like, oh, so you're so-and-so's kid. Well, this is what's going on, my burgers. And it's strange. There's no like interaction of, oh, hey, you're that kid that hit me. Or, oh, I know you. No acknowledgement whatsoever. And like, if he was just a random kid that was just around, I would understand. Like, he was in the restaurant, he was like, whatever. I get that. Like, he probably sees 1 million people a day, or not 1 million, but, hundreds of people a day or whatever. He doesn't recognize them. But when someone hits your car, not once, but twice, and like, you put your hands on them, don't you see them? Don't you see their face? Like, it's just weird. It's weird. It's weird. But yeah, another thing about that I thought was weird too, I'm kind of hopping around in the movie just because, like, I don't know, pig burgers goes with pig burgers. But yeah, so like, he's working there, right? Like, he's like, oh, so you're so-and-so's kid. So they clearly are just meeting, and that's in quotes, meeting for the first time. He's explaining the job to him, like, this, you're gonna make your patties, you gotta wear your hat, blah, blah, blah. There's no other employees. There's literally no one else there. Like, no one. And apparently this is like a no training situation. And okay, but then what? Like, that's not how jobs work. And again, maybe it's a joke I'm missing. But like, I don't get the joke. I don't get the joke. And then what really annoys me is like, okay, so we're in Pig Burger. He's just put on the grill. He has no training. He's wearing no gloves. Like, all this, whatever. There's no one else working there. And he has this whole everybody wants some, like, thing go on, right? Which was, when I was a kid, I loved that part. Van Halen, with the claymation burgers, and the lady burger has onions as boobs. It's kind of funny. But yeah, so like, this whole burger thing happens, and when Lane snaps back to reality, obviously there was no singing, guitar playing burgers or dancing French fries. It's just him playing around in the kitchen, and he's made a mess. So, rightly so, the owner gets angry. I'm pretty sure he fires him, but okay, he throws him out of the kitchen. Lane even gets up and puts the pig hat onto one of the kids that are eating there, and he leaves. So he got fired, right? That's what that scene is he messed up. He is no longer a member of the staff that he was the only member of. But yeah, then later on in the movie, Lane brings Monique there for a date. What? Yes, I know that the guy gave him the keys at first meeting. Again, another fucking weird thing. Why would no one would do that? But if he left and he's fired, wouldn't he have had to turn those keys in? And we never see him there again. He's never going to work again. So, but then why would you bring Monique there? Why would you do that? Who? It's so confusing because if you don't work there, then you're breaking in, right? Even if you have the key, I guess it's trespassing maybe, and the whole building is windows. You can be seen. I don't know. It's so confusing, and I don't know if it's just me or again nitpicking or the spicy brain or what, but it really it made my eye twitch. So yeah. But anyways, so let's go back. So this whole movie really, it's about Lane getting broken up with by Beth, who he was obsessed with. He's got pictures of her all over his house. He's just he thinks about her all the time. Even in his closet, his hangers have her head, so it looks like she's wearing the clothes. It's super crazy disturbing. And part of the messed up thing is that when she breaks up with him, she's I think it's better for me to be with someone more popular who has a better car. And, this guy, Roy Stalin, who's the captain, the bad guy, he can ski the K-12, and it's all these image things. It's image for her, and she blatantly tells him that it's an image thing. It's better for her to be with someone popular and good looking and with a nicer car and who is a captain of some team. It's just wow. So after the breakup, Lane comes home and the mom is vacuuming and asks how his day is. He says, "Beth broke up with me." And the mom responds with, "Oh, that's nice." And isn't that just a scene to embody Gen X and their relationships with their parents, even supposedly good parents? They just didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't care what we were going through. They just didn't care what we were feeling. They just, the vacuum. It's more important. The day-to-day stuff that they're doing, more important. And as an adult, I get the stresses of adult life and life in general definitely take precedence a lot of the time and take up a lot of, brain space. But oh God, that moment was just such a real moment in this very unreal-ish type movie. And so it's after this, still while she's vacuuming, that Lane tries to kill himself for the first time in this movie. And again, this movie is autobiographical, and Steve Holland has said he did try to kill himself in these extraordinarily, bizarre ways. So this particular scene is Lane tries to hang himself in the garage by an extension cord over a pipe. And as soon as he starts questioning what he's doing, his mom opens the door because she's vacuuming, and pushes him off the stairs, and he's just dangling there, and he's, trying to get purchase back onto these stairs, and she's just oblivious, just vacuuming, right? And like, it's supposed to be, he finally falls down, and it's funny, haha scene. And yeah, it kind of isn't funny, because he's literally trying to unalive himself, and that's like kind of a serious thing, right? Like, not kind of a serious thing, is a serious thing. But again, this is a comedy, and this is the 80s, so life was just different. But yeah, so Steve Holland, again, autobiographical, said that this kind of did happen. He got broken up with. He decided he was going to kill himself. He goes into the garage. He puts the extension cord around the pipe and then around his neck. He's standing on a garbage can. And as soon as he decides, wow, this is really stupid, the garbage can lid collapses and he falls. But instead of actually being suspended like Lane was and trying to find some sort of purchase, when Steve does it, the pipe breaks and water, so he falls to the ground and water is pouring everywhere, and there he is with an extension cord around his neck, fallen down into a trash can with water pouring down, and his mom gets mad at him for making a mess. Again, super fucking Gen X. Like, wow. I laugh because it's uncomfortable. So, yeah. So that was his first attempt. And then his second attempt is that he goes to jump off of an overpass, and Charles shows up, and Lane is like, okay, I'm not going to do this. And Charles, in celebrating, kind of slaps him on the back, and Lane falls from the overpass. He falls into a garbage truck instead of, on the road, so he's fine. And he's just sitting in the back of the truck, and he goes by these two workers, and one of the funniest lines in the entire thing is, that it's a shame that they're throwing away perfectly good white boys now. Like, it's an iconic moment in there, and actually one of the only moments that John Cusack talks about ever after this movie came out, and in a positive note, because it was funny. So that was his second attempt, was to jump off the overpass. The third is the car in the garage, and he turns the exhaust on, so it's filling it up, and then starting to get delirious. And of course, his dad at this time has just finally replaced all the broken windows in the garage, and Lane's foot slips because he's starting to pass out, and boom, he goes through the door. So attempt number 3 doesn't work. And then attempt number 4, Lane sees a article about a man who set himself on fire. Back in the 60s and 70s, this was a way of protest, especially with monks, and in Asia, people would set themselves on fire, and I just, what a horrible way to go. But so Lane decides that this is the way he's gonna do it, and on his way to the garage with his mason jar of kerosene or gasoline, he gets called to dinner. First of all, didn't you know it was dinner time? And why are you walking through there like that? Like, clearly he doesn't want to do this, which, good, you shouldn't. But so he sits down at the table with his jar of gasoline, and this is the French dinner, where his family is having the neighbors over with the French foreign exchange student, Monique, and the mom makes a French dressing, French fries, French bread, and serves Perrier water, because, she's French. But so the neighbors are there, and Ricky's mom is a smoker, and she just downs the whole glass of gasoline and then lights a cigarette and explodes. Well, it explodes. She doesn't explode. We see her later with like a face bandage. Still totally able to talk and just, whatever, but so yeah. So that's him trying all the ways to kill himself, which yeah. So this is around the time too where we do get the flashback of how Lane and Beth meet during the summer, and it is a really funny scene because like she wipes her, like, just absentmindedly wipes at her nose, as people do, because that's what we do. We have noses and sometimes they get itchy. And then Lane's like, oh no, she just wiped her nose, is there something on my nose? And so he wipes his nose, and then she's like, oh no, he wiped his nose, does that mean that there's something on my nose? And like, so then the scene ends with them feverishly, both of them just wiping their noses. And it's kind of funny because like, who hasn't had that moment where someone did some gesture and you thought they were talking about you, so you're like wiping at your shoulder or wiping at your nose or like doing whatever, and it's really just you in your own mind. So yeah. Another really, really relatable moment was in geometry class when Lane is totally unprepared for the assignment when everyone else seems not just prepared but enthusiastically over prepared. Like, everyone has these great freaking things. They're pulling out computers, rolls and rolls of papers, like just all these things. Like, they know what they're doing and they're into it. And then there's Lane, who's just like trying to hide, like in his desk from being called on, but ultimately is getting called on, probably because he was so obviously hiding. And I think some teachers are sadistic and they're like, oh, you're unprepared, let's embarrass you in front of everyone. But like, yeah, I just, wow. Like, even the like going up to the board and just standing there staring at it with the piece of chalk in his hand, like hoping that by some miracle and magic that the answers and whatever are just gonna suddenly appear in your head. I cannot tell you how much, as a girl with ADHD and a spicy brain who did not know it back then, but how relatable that was. Because wow. Wow, it like actually kind of gave me a little like anxiety stomach. I was like, oh god. Yeah, I remember that. Another really weird thing in there, Charles is trying to like help get Lane back into better spirits and to help him, maybe get Beth back, like win her back. Charles says one of the things to help would be to start playing his sax again, like for Lane to be playing his saxophone, because girls love a guy who can play music. And like, okay, yes. And then he says, learn to ski the K-12. And this is a quote, girls will get sterile just looking at you. Okay, again, it's got to be the spicy brain. I don't understand the joke. I like sterile, like can't reproduce sterile? Like sterile as in clean? Like, I don't, why? I don't get it. Like, if it's sterile as in like can't have babies, I understand the indication of like they can't get pregnant, so unprotected sex, or they become promiscuous. I don't get it. Like, why? Like, why would that, just because you can't get pregnant doesn't make you slutty or open or any of those other things that I feel like were indicated in that joke, but like maybe, I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something, and if someone actually understands that, could you like tell me? Like just email me or message me in whatever way, and like please explain that joke, cuz I don't get it. I don't get it. So, yeah, another weird cringy part in the same area was the teacher asking Lane for permission to pursue Beth. Like, what the fuck? Like, again, I get the joke because, other people, the mailman also asks him. I think one of his animations, like mental animations, asks him. I don't remember right now. But like the teacher asking, I get the joke. Everyone wants Beth and, poor Lane. But also, ew. No, it's not funny. It's a teacher and it's gross. And ew. Just stop it. Stop it. The animation from Lane drawing in class, though, was just, oh, I love it. Chef's kiss. Like, it was so funny. Him drawing Beth, him drawing Roy, and then the little monster eating Roy, and then little animated Beth, like, arguing with Lane, and then the little monster spitting Roy out, and it was so cute, and I loved it. But yeah, so there's also like a cheerleader that Lane is like, I could get her. She's sexy. And she's like this cheerleader on roller skates. Like, why does she have roller skates on? Like, she's the only person there that has roller skates. I think she's the only cheerleader we see too. But like, roller skates. Oh, okay. Weird. But she's dating the basketball team, and the basketball team is just like, the only lines they have is they grunt. And like their grunting sounds like zombies. Like if you've ever played a video game, especially like a mobile, like not like crazy, graphic game, like just a fun haha zombie game, that's what their grunting sounds like. And it's weird because like I don't know. Like I feel like maybe football players that would have worked, but like basketball players grunting like zombies while she's on roller skates, it was so confusing. Oh yeah. Also in this lunch scene, Ricky has like this medium-ish size carton of Hershey's chocolate milk, and although we did have chocolate milk all through our school career in our town, they were not that large and they were not Hershey's, but I do remember those exact ones in the movie being a thing, and they were so good. Like, only on rare occasions in my house we would get them, but we'd also sometimes get the bigger cartons at home, and because my dad loved chocolate milk, and of course the tab, which is on the table, was a thing my mom would get occasionally. Us kids weren't allowed to drink it, of course, which I didn't get back then. I get now because Sweet and Low and like whatever they used back then, and things were less calories and just whatever. But there were a few of them. Tab we weren't allowed to drink. There was some weird Weight Watchers soda, and for some reason I remember specifically chocolate, and I didn't understand why I couldn't drink it because it was chocolate and I was a kid and I like chocolate. So yeah. And also Fresca. And I think my mom just didn't let us drink Fresca because she liked it. I'm not really sure. I haven't had it in like ages and ages and ages. Probably a couple decades at this point. But like I wanted to drink it because I had it before and it was so yummy. But like she was like, no, you can't have that. And that's just, some of that weird stuff. Of course, because this is a film from 1985, the fashion throughout the entire movie is like something you definitely should like pay attention to. It's a lot. It's not as much as some 80s movies, like the styles are just so insane. But this one was a lot of fun, and I feel like the dance scene with, Tommy Pickles singing, um that one's it's just a fun adventure. Just look at everyone that's there. Just do it. And like, I don't know. It's just, there's so much to look at. The dance, I will say too, even though they don't really show like tons of it, and like not tons of stuff happens there, the whole vibe and scene of that dance is like one of the most realistic things of the movie. I really like, yeah, we didn't have a real live singer for our dances. We would only have DJs, but like the outside vibe and like the at the table vibe and just like, all that, it was just very reminiscent to me, I guess. Oh, the mom and the TV dinners, that was another based on true stuff. I guess one year, Holland's mom actually got him TV dinners, and it was specifically because he liked the peach cobbler dessert. So he was like, I have to put that in there. So, yeah. For fashion too, like, I don't know what's happening, but like, very notably, Lane's fashion for the dance and for his pig burger date, like, oh, yes, so nice. It was like one of the nice things about 80s fashion. Like, I don't know what it is, but like the beige outfit for like suit outfit for the date, very nice. And then the black suit outfit that he wears to the dance is just, oh, like pinnacle of 80s fashion. I love it. I love it. So Lane's brother, Badger. Lane says at some point, you're almost 8. So he's 7. Like, he's legitimately 7. And there's the same scene where the mailman asks Lane if he can pursue Beth. Badger gets a book about how to pick up trashy women. And then we get a scene where Badger is in his room with a red light on, with scantily clad women and what appears to be alcohol. And he's 7. Like, again, I get the joke. It's ha ha ha. Look at Lane is so unlucky in love and so unlucky with women. But here is his, little brother who clearly can get the ladies. But just, ew. Like, he's 7. He like implied sexual stuff going on, and like drinking, and just ugh. It was funny when I was a kid. I thought it was hilarious. Now it's so cringy. I just can't even, like, why? Oh, and yeah, the gang of paper boys and the paper boy in general, like, so the gang of paper boys, they show up like after he leaves the dance, I believe it is, and they like just show up like in the dark out in the woods, and they're just like, yeah, here we are. And like, were they waiting for Lane specifically outside of the dance, like all of them, to chase him for this $2 that like Lane doesn't even owe them or him? The parents owe the $2. So like, why are they stalking Lane? And this isn't the only time, because at the end when they're skiing, the paper boy's there too. And like, those are specifically Lane things. Those aren't like, oh, well, it just happened to be the family was there and, Lane was around. It was, no, the paperboy is stalking and hunting Lane, who is a older kid. Sure, he's like, 16 or 17, but he's still a kid of the household. He isn't like the head of the household. He isn't a grown-up in the household. Like, he's not the one that owes you the fucking $2. Like, $2. I don't get it. I don't get it. or maybe I get it and like I feel like maybe I get things and they're just not funny to me. And I don't know what that says about me, but I don't know. So yeah. Another thing about this is like, obviously Ricky and his mom, they're horrible characters. Though Ricky does have his moments and I hate it because like we are not supposed to like him. And then in real life, like Dan Schneider is not likable. Like not likable. But like at the dance, one of my favorite parts of this movie is at the dance when Lane and Monique are outside talking and Ricky follows them and he's got a balloon, and then the balloon gets away and he turns around and he does this little pathetic hop to try to get the balloon. Like it's just so funny, and I don't know why it's funny, but it really is. But yeah, so like Ricky and his mom, horrible people, horrible characters. They're supposed to be horrible. We're not supposed to like them. But it's super sad, or just, again, cringy. Just like basically Ricky and his mom feel like they got this foreign exchange student. Like they ordered a mail order bride for Ricky. And that's how they're treating her. And it's just... oh, man, that sucks. Like, ew, it's all gross. Why is it all so gross? Like, oh, yeah. Earlier, I listed, the different attempts that Lane does to kill himself. And like they're pretty blatant. Tries to hang himself. He tries to blow himself up. He tries to set himself on fire. He tries to carbon monoxide himself with the garage and the car. Very blatant, like jump off the overpass. Like these are very blatant, unaliving things. Now, when I used to watch this, I would go over my friend's house and we'd have sleepovers all the time. Her two older brothers were usually the ones that were in charge because her mom was a single mom and she worked all the time. But so there's another scene where Lane gets out of the shower and he puts a Q-tip in his ear like, one does. And I think he's brushing his teeth. He started off brushing his teeth. So he puts a Q-tip in one ear. And then he leaves it there and he puts another Q-tip in the other ear. And then he puts Q-tips up his nose. And then he takes the toothbrush out of his mouth and he starts putting Q-tips in his mouth. And the dad like walks in and he's like, oh. And it's like one of those points of like, oh, clearly my kid's on drugs, because that's the book that he's looking at. Like he thinks there's something wrong with Lane other than emotional upset. Of course, that's again another very Gen X thing. It can't be emotions, it's gotta be drugs, right? So his dad walks in on him and like these Q-tips are just poking out all over the place. And when I was a kid, my friend would laugh at this and be like, oh, he's so dumb, he tried to kill himself with Q-tips. And like, did he? Or was he just being weird? And like, I've never figured that out. And like, cause I'm like, I don't think he did. And she's like, no, he did. Because if you put them too far in your ear or too high up in your nose, you'll get your brain and you'll die. And that was her big thing. And every time we watched it, it was laugh, laugh, laugh. Look at how he tried to kill himself with Q-tips. And like, this was, oh my God, like close to 40 years ago. Not 40 years ago, but very close to 40 years ago. And like, this whole time have always wondered, I don't think that that's what's going on. I don't think so. I think he was just being silly. But again, it could be another joke that just went over my head. So Monique is like basically just, the stereotypic perfect girl back then. Like she was the girl next door. She's into baseball, so that means she's into sports. She can ski. She's French. She's got that very, very stereotypic French accent, which, I don't know if it's still a thing, but back then, like, French girls was like a thing. Like the French maid and like the mysterious woman, and like, I don't know. So she was like the perfect girl in this movie. And of course, the perfect girl can also fix cars. So when she starts fixing Lane's car, she asks why he keeps trying to kill himself, and in all of these different weird ways. And I just, again, it could just be me nitpicking, it could just be my spicy brain, but like, how did she know that? Like, yes, she was there for the gasoline incident, but did he then explain to everyone or to her that he had tried killing himself in these other ways? I don't know. Consistency, like, But like, he also, at this time, after she asked, he explains the whole Beth situation, the why to him, trying to unalive himself. And he explains it in a way that, like, Monique did not interact with Stalin at the lunch table, because that scene, the whole lunch table thing, where Stalin comes over and like messes with Lane and Monique ends up spraying soda on him. Like, why is Lane explaining this situation like she never met Beth or Stalin? It's super weird. Like, it's super weird. And it's not that I was like, oh, well, maybe the scene's out of order. But it's not out of order, because the lunch scene with that and the soda and Stalin and Monique is where Lane challenges Stalin to the ski off. And in this scene where they're fixing the car and Monique asks about the unaliving and Lane explains Beth and Stalin, he's like, oh, well, I gotta ski. I gotta do the ski off thing. Like, it's not out of order. It's just out of context. It's weird. It's weird. And like, they work on that car for like a day, and then all of a sudden it's perfect. Like, everything in it is perfect. All of the parts are perfectly shiny and new. The paint is shiny and new. Everything is perfect. And I mean, it's a gorgeous car, don't get me wrong, but also like, not realistic expectations there. So yeah, so I mean, like, that's kind of the stuff that stuck out to me in this movie. I will say skiing is a very central theme. It is a big catalyst in this entire film, yet it is the least interesting thing in this entire movie. Like, it's really the least interesting part of all of it. I don't know. It's just so weird. But, at the end of the movie, of course, Lane wins, and he wins on one ski, being chased by the $2 paper boy, of course. And then at the end, they have, Lane and Ricky have like this ski pole fencing about Monique, because Ricky and Ricky's mom are like, hey, we got Monique for Ricky. So they do this whole fencing thing, and Ricky lands on his mom, and then Lane and Monique just drive away, and it appears that they just drive away to Dodger Stadium. Like, that's where the movie ends, is they drove into the middle of Dodger Stadium and are just sitting on, his now fixed, awesome, pristine car in the middle of Dodger Stadium. And I just, what the hell? Like, first of all, do they go back home? And when she goes back, is like Ricky's mom mad? Like, what happens there? I don't. And then like, she's a foreign exchange student, so she's not staying. It's just so many questions. So many questions. I don't know. I don't know if my spicy brain can handle stuff like this anymore. Like it's too much overthinking, too much. I hang out with too many Virgos or whatever. Too much thinking about the details. So, yeah. And then, and in that scene, the whole fencing scene, when Ricky falls on his mom, he is actually helped up by like this, quote unquote nerdy type girl, and then just leaves with the girl, and the mom is like yelling, Ricky, Ricky, and that's just how it ends, and and Ricky's kind of like, eh. And again, he's got to go home, right? Like, he's got to deal with that mom. I don't know. I think of the consequences in the aftermath a lot, and it's all very weird. Yeah. And in the whole Dodger Stadium thing, like, so they drove their car all the way, like Lane and Monique leave the ski area and they drive all the way to Dodger Stadium. And who shows up at Dodger Stadium? The fucking $2 paper boy. Like, again, I get the joke, but what? Dude, why don't you ask the parents? Go stalk the dad. I mean, go stalk the mom. She's home making weird food. Like, I don't understand the going after the high schooler for the money. It makes no sense. Like, none at all. And then, like, the whole movie ends with the dad fixes the garage door. He's so happy and excited. And then Badger, the little brother, leaves in a jet or a space shuttle that, shoots out of the house, of course, destroying the garage door. And ta-da! It's so weird. It's all so weird. I don't know. I love the movie. I will always love the movie. Things don't have to make sense for me to love them. But also, wow, so weird. So just a couple random notes to close it off. So after the movie, like I've mentioned multiple times, this is semi-autobiographical to the writer and director Savage Steve Holland. After the movie came out, he said his ex-girlfriend, the one that broke up with him because of the ski captain, she saw the movie and she got in contact with him. This is what he had to say about it in an interview with The Sneeze. I got a call. I don't know how she got my number, and she said, I've been in therapy because I saw your movie, and I had no idea. And then she sent me cookies and stuff. So, like, I guess it made its point. So John Cusack supposedly hated the movie when they did the screening for the cast and crew. He is rumored to have walked out after just 20 minutes telling Steve Holland that he had tricked him and that the film was the worst thing he had ever seen. Like, dramatic much, Mr. Cusack? Like, I love your work, but wow. Super, super dramatic, especially since supposedly Cusack had helped edit it, and the other co-stars had said that the final product was pretty much what the script that they were given said it was going to be. Like, it matched the script. The insane part is that this all, him leaving the screening and being all mad, that happened just a day before they both, Holland and Cusack, would start filming for One Crazy Summer. I mean, I bet you that was not a fun set to be on, because, like, apparently Cusack was, like, really angry and, like, told Holland he never wanted to talk to him again, and, like, he couldn't trust him as a director, and all this. But yeah, Holland said in the Sneeze interview about Cusack hating the movie, quote, I had my heart broken. That was the second time my heart was broken since that girl that Better Off Dead was about. Honest to God. Like, oh my God. Like, I mean, I guess, because, like, he's, art comes in all forms. Making a movie is an art form. So I can understand that. Like, I can understand where, someone tells you that they hate something that they were a part that you created. That's a pretty big gut punch. So, but finally in like 2015, I think it was, Cusack would address on the Nerdist podcast all the rumors about him hating the movie. And he said, quote, "It was one of those things where I made it. I didn't really have a feel for it, but it was fine. It was good. I didn't have anything against it. I mean, I love when he says, 'It's a shame to throw away a perfectly good white boy.' I feel bad that the director thinks I have something against it." And it's like, well, if the story is true, not only from Holland himself, the director, but also from other actors that were at the screening, that he actually left, like he walked out and yelled at Holland. Well, like, of course that's how he thinks. Like, of course Holland thinks you have something against it, because you kind of made sure that he knew you had something against it. There's also rumors about how, like, for years and years, until like 2014, Cusack would not sign any kind of Better Off Dead merch. Like, no posters, no nothing. Like, he would actually push them away if people would come to signings and bring him stuff like that. But finally in 2014, he signed a poster, and it, yay, he apparently came to terms with it. So that's super good. Recently, the film, like this year, the film has become popular again thanks to streaming services, as well as people's nostalgic hunger for the 80s and 90s, like anything from the 80s and 90s. So, because it was a vibe, it was a time, and I am so happy, and I feel so lucky that I was able to grow up in the 80s and 90s, because I know everyone feels like this about their generations and their times of, being a kid and a teenager, but like, really, the 80s and 90s, I feel like, were the pinnacle, because we did have technology, we did have a lot of creature comforts and like all these things, but we also had a lot of things that were more simple. And I don't know, it was an amazing time. And I don't know, I get it. I get why people want to revisit or visit it to begin with, because it was awesome. Yeah, so Andrew Meyer, he was the producer of the film, and he was also the producer for The Breakfast Club and Fried Green Tomatoes. He was saying about the fact that the movie is popular again, and this is him, quote, "People are still relating to the story and watching it. That universal theme, for one, is the concept of someone being so obsessed with someone and having dumped them, and how they react in a very comedic fashion." And I think that's true, because, we've all had crushes. We've all had those relationships where one of us was more into it than the other. And we've all had our heart broken at some point and to some degree. And at the time, it does feel like life and the world is over. And it's interesting. It's interesting because, like, this movie, even though it's a comedy, it does talk about serious themes like that. And that, even when you think life is over or not worth living anymore, there's always something new, whether that be a car or a ski trip or a girl or boy or anybody, someone else. Like, there's always something more and something new. Heartbreak doesn't last forever. Grief doesn't even last forever. Yeah, you may have a little of your grief for whatever the situation that stays with you and becomes a part of you, but living in that grief, it's not a forever thing. And even though it's a silly little movie, I think that's a really important lesson. Thank you for joining me today for Naive in the 90s, the podcast. I hope you come back in 2 weeks for a new episode. Who knows what we'll do? So make sure to follow so you don't miss it. For questions, comments, feedback, or contributions to the conversation, send me a message at naiveinthe90s@gmail.com or connect with me on social media with the handle at naiveinthe90s. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and now Threads. Of course, don't forget to grab your copy of Naive in the 90s, the creative nonfiction book based on real-life diaries from the early and mid-90s. Follow along as a high schooler tries to navigate life, friends, relationship, and of course, the raddest era ever. And if you have read and enjoyed the book, please make sure to leave a review. Each and every one truly helps. Thanks again for joining. Hope to see you next time. Peace and love, my dudes.